Welcome back to Post Projects and Project 818 SRX. Today we're talking Bumpsteer kit. It seems to be a big problem with the 818. It just suffers from Bumpsteer right away, like severely. Feels really twitchy every time you hit a bump. Basically, every time you hit a bump, the steering wheel just goes jerk, and it just feels really unstable. So everyone's installing Bumpsteer kits. Now, basically what you're doing is here's our tie rod here, and let's see if we can get a good angle here. So right now we're at full suspension droop, and you can see this angles down. Or I should say it angles up to the rack. But when the car is under load, it's actually going the other way, and it's angling down towards the rack. So it's sitting at an angle, and what you want it to do is you want it to sit basically straight at it under full load. So we're going to remove this whole tie rod end and replace everything here, and then move this pivot point down lower. Another thing is I've got an early kit. So on mine, the steering rack wasn't actually spaced properly. I didn't really think about how that would affect things. It didn't seem to be a huge issue on the forums until I had everything assembled, and then I'm like, I should have just cut and welded my brackets. But I'm going to be able to avoid that with the longer tie rod sleeves. Another thing about having the rack uneven is you'll notice right now my steering wheel is not straight. Oh, and there's a sneak peek at my AM CD7, which I mounted. So the steering wheel's not straight, and there's literally only enough threads on the passenger side to just have the tie rod on. Like, not a safe amount of threads for me to put it on the road. So we need to fix that. Let's see if I can show you that. So I got all these parts from Speedway Motors. And basically, this is what we're replacing the tie rod end with. It consists of this guy here, which is the tapered stud to fit in where the stock tie rod is, and then all this sleeve, which allows for spacers. Now, according to one of the members on the Factory 5 forums, Hindsight, we need 47 millimeters or 1.85 inches of spacers for a stock 818S ride height, and that is from right here. That's from the bottom of the spindle, and not spacers added, because a lot of guys originally were just drilling out the hole to a 5/8 on the spindle and then just using a long grade 8 5 bolt as opposed to using this tapered one, which is also a viable option. I got an assortment of spacers, but this is all I'm going to need is these here, these two, and that worked out to, I think it was 48. That's actually right on 47. So I'm gonna strip the old stuff off and install this stuff, and hopefully it'll be a breeze. I also took a measurement. I made sure, because I'd already set my toe, so I made sure that the spindles were evenly spaced from the inner or lower control arm bolt, and I took a little stick and made the marks on it, so it'll help me. I'll center the wheel, and then I'll adjust the tie rods to get back to that point, and then they'll be within an eighth, which is close enough for me to continue on. I got to check the alignment again afterwards, because I need to raise the car up, because it's just way too low now. If you notice in the first drive video, it was really low, and that's because when I initially set the ride height, it never had any body work on it, never had any coolant in it, never had any oil coolers. There's just so many things that weren't on the car, so the car is quite a bit heavier now, so it sits quite a bit lower. So while I got everything off, I'll also turn the suspension, the coils up a little bit, and then once everything is mounted in there, I'll go ahead and finish the ride height, and then double check my toe and see how much it's changed from installing these. So let's get going. So one thing I don't really like, if you notice, while the taper seems to be about the same, see if it's focusing there, there you go. This one is actually a little bigger than that one, like on the base. So this one doesn't sit flat to the spindle. So let's just have a look on the car. We have this gap. This doesn't sit flush to there. Now it can't go anywhere because it is pretty much the right taper, and we got a lock nut up top, and I'm not worried about it, but I just think it would have been nice if that to sit flat. One of the four members that did use the same parts, I believe Tony, on his 818 RA, he actually machined that down so it did fit flush. But I think I'm okay to leave it like that. I did need to change out the spacers though. I had to do I kept a 1/2 inch spacer, but I ran a much smaller spacer here because I had to account that distance in. So it's 47 millimeters from the bottom of the spindle here to the last spacer to the spherical end. And then I put a couple of spacers down here just because I had an assortment of spacers, just so that the nut wouldn't interfere with the spherical link and our spherical end, and bind on the hex end. So, and then it has a lock nut on the end of it. And you can see there's only a few threads exposed now. My worry is that this sleeve is actually going to be too long for the other side where the rack is offset. Now they do come in a 3.5 inch, but I would hate to have to order it. It's probably going to cost me $25 shipping for a $10 part, but that's Canada. So I'm going to go ahead and install the other side without you guys looking over my shoulder, and I'll let you know how it turns out. So the other side is also finished, and you can see while there are less threads exposed, there's still this wasn't too long, this link here, and again, that's how it all looks installed. So that's pretty much it. I got a bunch of other things I'm going to tackle today and tomorrow, and I'll probably just make a couple other short little videos instead of a long one, because I might not finish them, and then I might finish them in 2 weeks, and I just assume get this little video done. So I'm just going to show you the parts that I got. These are all from Speedway Motors. So there was 2 of these. That's the tie rod adapter, and then that's the Pinto stud that sticks into the spindle. Those are the Heim joints, and then the spacers I used was a 5/8 by 1 spacer, and then these are actually Bumpsteer spacers, and this was a 2/10 of an inch 2-pack. I also used these spacers from underneath, but you know, probably a 3/16 single spacer would have been fine. And then I have a bunch of other spacers because at some point when the alignment is all done and I've driven the car and it's been on track and we're further along in the build, I want to purchase a Bumpsteer gauge so that I can also check the back. And while that's adjustable, you don't need a kit. I'd like to have, you know, 0 or I believe there's a way to have good Bumpsteer that actually helps. I think Porsche uses that, as one of the guys was talking about it in the forum. But that's something I'd like to get into in the future with tuning suspension and whatnot, but right now we're still in the building stage. So I just copied the size from the guys in the forum, and it'll be far better to start with than just the way the Factory 5 sets you up doing it. That's pretty much it. A big shout out to one of the forum members, Frank 818. He actually ordered all these parts for me. He was putting together this kit instead of just buying the Bear kit. He was putting this kit together, which I liked a little better and was a little cheaper. He's another Canadian builder, so he ordered all the parts in the US and then just doubled the order and shipped the stuff for me, and I didn't have to do any work. I just he told me how much to send him, and I sent him some money, and it saved me a headache of just compiling all these parts together and making sure I had the right ones. So thanks, Frank. I finally installed it. It's probably been like a year and a half since you sent it to me. But that's it for today. Next up, I can finish up most of the interior. I finally got that Borg Warner EFR V-band clamp that I talked about before. So I'll take the other one off, and I'll show you both of them combined or next to each other before I install that, so you can see the difference. Anyone that decides to run an EFR turbo, that's definitely relevant information. And yeah, there's a whole lot of little things left, but the list is slowly getting checked off. So until next time, peace.